What do developmental reflexes have to do with behavior? When I discuss developmental reflexes, I'm talking about primitive reflexes and postural reflexes. It's important to understand that the first brain system that develops in an infant is the brainstem. The brainstem is what we call the bottom of the brain, and the frontal part of the brain is what we call the top part of the brain. Brain balance, we take a bottom-up approach, and the first thing we look at are what we call primitive, developmental, or postural reflexes. Postural reflexes allow a baby to see, feel, taste, touch, interact with their environment. And the first part of the nervous system that develops in a baby is called the fight or flight, or sympathetic nervous system. Then as the baby starts to mature, another part of the nervous system develops, which is called the rest and digest, or parasympathetic nervous system. Many times when the trajectory of the brain is not taking its typical course, children have retained or non-integrated primitive, developmental, or postural reflexes. One of these reflexes is known as the startle reflex, or the Moro reflex. The Moro reflex keeps a child in this fight or flight mode, this high alert mode. If that reflex is not inhibited, or if that reflex is not integrated, the child will be in a state of constant fight or flight. What might this look like? Low frustration tolerance, poor coping strategies, anxiety, tantrums, can't handle the word no. Why are the primitive reflexes non-integrated? Because the brain has not taken its typical trajectory. The way primitive reflexes or developmental or postural reflexes are integrated is when higher levels of the brain start to develop, they incorporate and integrate these reflexes. But if other areas of the brain are not maturing, like the frontal part of the brain, the executive, or the visual system, or the motor system, or the auditory system, or all of these systems are not coordinating and maturing, then the brain is not able to inhibit or shut down these reflexes. And now the baby, or the infant, or the child remains in this primitive state. And there are a number of reflexes. There are reflexes that have to do with eye tracking and movement, called the asymmetric reflex. If that reflex is not fully integrated or inhibited, children could have tracking problems while reading. Children could have visuospatial problems, handwriting problems. There's a reflex known as the spinal galant reflex. A child who has a spinal galant reflex might be fidgety, restless, can't sit still, be bothered by textures on their skin like tags or socks, or actually bedwetting. There are reflexes known as the tonic labyrinthine reflex and the Landau reflex. These reflexes have to do with self-awareness, self-reflection. So a child might miss cues in their environment or not understand how their behaviors and actions are impacting others. We have a grasp reflex, which has to do with handwriting or fine motor control. The key aspect here is that these reflexes lock the brain in this immature state and do not allow the brain to continue to develop in its normal trajectory. With brain balance, it's very important through very specific activities that we integrate these reflexes, but you can't just do work to integrate the reflexes. You have to, at the same time, simultaneously, do work to stimulate the higher level systems of the brain so they start maturing and reach down and integrate the reflex. And what I'm talking about are the frontal systems, the attentional systems, the emotional systems, the visual processing systems, the cerebellar movement systems, all the systems that are assessed and targeted in our brain balance program.